Hey, and welcome back to your #1 source for cozy gaming and design content. I'm Nick, and today we're going to be taking a look at the design of what are probably my favorite earbuds I've ever tried, the Sony LinkBuds. To start off with, let's talk about some of the defining features that Sony claim make this product stand out among the sea of other earbud offerings. The first, and what I find to be the most important feature, is evident the second you take one look at these: the open back design. In general, according to audiophiles anyway, open back headphones are meant to give the wearer a much wider soundstage and help give the music a much more open and wide feel, whatever that means. Basically, instead of the back of the headphone being closed so the sound is fully contained inside the ear cup, it's open so the sound can get in and out. And in my experience, as someone who likes to actually go places and do things while I listen to my music, and not just sit in a very quiet, very sound-controlled room, this really only carries with it the advantage of allowing me to hear what's going on around me. I can't really find any difference in the openness of the music. Most music, unless something is very, very wrong with it, will generally sound the same to me regardless of how I'm listening to it. And I'm saying this just to kind of give you the impression, the correct impression that I am no audiophile. I'm not coming at this from a audiophile's perspective. I'm coming at this from my kind of general user perspective. Now, with that in mind, the other standout feature is the fact that these sit somewhere in between in-ear and on-ear headphones. Now, technically, they go in your ear, but they sit way farther out towards the front than any other kind of in-ear earbud that I've ever tried. So I struggle to really call them in-ear. This, if you have rather sensitive ear canals like myself, which I'll talk a bit more about in a second, is a huge advantage and leads to these earbuds being leagues ahead of any in-ear that I've tried before. They also boast a super cool wide area tap feature, which allows you to interact with the controls by tapping on your temple to pause, play, change the volume, or interact with your assistant. And for someone like me who uses these in an environment where my hands are either begloved or kind of dirty, it's super nice to not have to touch the actual earbud itself in order to interact with it. And given that this sits much farther out of your ear than any other earbud, it does suffer a bit in the kind of in-ear security side of things, so not having to worry about dislodging it when you were trying to adjust your music is amazing. Also, I've found this works wonders even when you have hearing protection on. Again, I'll talk a bit more about this in a second, but I think these are probably hands down the best shop earbuds available. And the last thing I want to talk about is this case. They've definitely taken inspiration from Apple in the satisfaction factor of their case design. I personally find it to be one of the most delightful and pleasing cases that I've ever had the pleasure of using. Plus, the earbuds themselves click into place with a really satisfying and pleasing click as well. I think the overall shape could have been a bit less organic, but that really is just a preference thing. They are super pocketable and will fit most places that you want to store them. One of the marketing points that Sony makes clear with the industrial design of these is the fact that they're made from all recycled plastics, and the packaging doesn't have any plastic in it either, which is kind of a nice feeling when you're buying a product that could have easily been made from purely virgin materials. Now, it's impossible to fully recycle plastic, so they do add an asterisk to their all recycled plastic claim, but that's about as good as you're gonna get, and it's far better than a lot of other offerings. Now, we'll get into why I personally love these earbuds so much. Honestly, it's just because anything designed to go in-ear just irritates my ears. It doesn't matter what the design is or what it's made of. Anything that I stick into my ear canals irritates them to no end. And aside from just getting itchy and sweaty after only about an hour of actually using them, other earbuds generally leave my ears feeling very irritated for a few days after the fact. These brilliant little guys, however, no such issues. I can comfortably wear these for hours on end and honestly forget that they're even in my ears. I've put in long hours in the model shop with these in my ears and had no problem whatsoever. Even in such a dusty and oftentimes rather hot environment, I could completely forget that they're even there. Another huge plus for me personally is that they are open-backed, and in a shop where there are potentially dangerous things happening all the time, all around you, you need to be able to hear what's going on. And so the open-backed design of these is ideal for still being able to hear your music, but also hear if someone is shouting at you from across the room. Now, I will admit the sound quality, from a kind of more objective standpoint, takes a bit of a hit, especially in an environment like that. However, I'm definitely no audiophile, as you can probably tell by the somewhat lacking quality of my mic on these videos, which I promise I'm trying to pin down, so please bear with me. But yeah, the audio takes a bit of a hit. Obviously, open-backed headphones are going to let in a lot more sound from the environment, and that'll mess with kind of the original intent of the music. And they are going to sound very different from over-ear or in-ear headphones regardless. But given that they are on-the-go focused earbuds, I think they sustain a much larger reduction in quality than something like over-ear headphones would, because the drivers are a lot smaller and they have a lot less space to work with. However, I don't really care. I can't hear that difference anyway, so it doesn't really bother me. But if that's something you're sensitive to and you care about, and you think would bother you, then yeah, these are going to be a bit lacking in that regard. But personally, I think what they lack in raw audio quality, they make up for in comfort and usability. Aside from the workshop scenario I mentioned, they're also great for the daily commuter who might want to take public transit and need to hear the next stop being called out, or a street photographer who wants to listen to music but still needs to be able to hear the world around them. In those scenarios, yes, you could go with something like the AirPods or the AirPods Pro and just use the pass-through feature, though I definitely think the quality of pass-through, no matter how good their mics are or the processing is, will never be as good or as immediate as just literally cutting a hole in the back of the headphones. And I think for the target audience, which is most definitely not audiophiles, the sound quality is pretty great, and they're definitely loud enough to hear what's going on around you, even in a pretty crowded room. Though if you're looking for pure isolation, these aren't going to be great for that. But, I mean, that's kind of obvious just by looking at them. But that brings me to my gripes with these. And there are only a few, but I think they are very important to note because they could be a potential deal breaker for you. To start off with, you'll probably notice in the B-roll that I have 2 pairs of these. And while yes, part of that is because I just love them so much, and I always want to have a pair kicking around somewhere, it's also because this black pair have started to become unreliable. Let me explain. I bought these a little over a year ago, shortly after they were released, and for most of that time they served me great. I used them constantly, and absolutely loved them. They were perfect for sitting in class and listening to music while working on CAD or sketching out a design, and then being able to hear if the teacher started talking and needed the class to pay attention. All I had to do was tap on my temple, and I was immediately back in the classroom, fully aware of what was going on. However, a bit after the year mark, and coincidentally just after the warranty was up, I noticed there was a bit of a reduction in battery life. I found myself having to put them back in their case a bit more often than before, and I didn't think too much of it because they still got me a solid couple of hours continuous playback, and that's just kind of how batteries are in portable tech, so fine. But then, give it another couple months, and I'm down to just about 30 minutes before the right earbud was fully out of battery. And so I usually would just put the right earbud back in the case and continue on with the left. It was a bit annoying, but not unusable, so fine. I figured it was probably just a software thing and might be fixed in a future firmware update, so I just dealt with it and went on with my life. Give it another couple months, and a couple firmware updates, and no change. The right earbud was just about unusable, and just generally wasn't worth taking out of the case because it would start to beep at me in about 15 to 20 minutes anyway. I came to find that other people had the same issue as me, and it seems to just be something that can happen after a while. Obviously, it wasn't happening to everyone who bought a pair, but enough that there were more than a couple posts about it. This is a big problem for fairly obvious reasons. Now, this could be easily looked past if these earbuds were like $50, but at almost 4 times that price, you're looking at potentially spending almost $200 a year just for headphones. That's not really acceptable, and that's to say nothing of the waste of having a bunch of earbuds that, other than one earbud being broken, work just fine. And that kind of negates any benefit you would have gotten from them being made of recycled materials, too. And while it didn't stop me from getting another pair, that was really just because they seem to be the only ones actually doing this design, other than the loop earplugs, which aren't earbuds. And again, this isn't necessarily a deal breaker. From what I can tell, it isn't really a problem across the board, and given that I got mine pretty close to the beginning of the life cycle, I wouldn't be surprised if Sony caught this issue and quietly fixed the hardware so it doesn't happen anymore on any of the newer, more recently manufactured ones. But the thing is, we have no way of knowing. I've looked at a bunch of documentation about how to fix the issue, and it seems it might be a hardware issue with the bud not fully engaging in the case, but when I put it in the new case, it still doesn't last long at all. I don't know, and that's the problem. If I knew what the problem was, then I might be able to assure you that it won't happen to you if you buy a pair. But I can't do that, because I have no idea what's causing the problem, or if it's fixed, or even fixable. Ultimately, to me, this problem, while big, and I hope doesn't happen to this new pair, isn't a deal breaker. I love these things, and I've never tried earbuds that are this comfortable, this functional, and this usable. I won't be dropping these for a new pair of Pixel Buds or other Sony Buds or, God forbid, AirPods. And again, yes, they have this one problem, but every product will have issues and quirks, and it's definitely not like those other options don't have their own unique issues and annoyances. Ultimately, I personally find these to be far too delightful to drop just because of a problem that is happening to some people and some units, but, realistically isn't happening to everything that comes off of the line. And I really hope Sony continues to improve on and iterate on this design. I really hope they stick with it. Because while I know it's not as profitable and not as popular as their other offerings, I think for the niche it's made for, this thing is a godsend. And I really hope they don't go away anytime soon. But what do you think? Do these sound appealing to you? Do you think you're going to pick up a pair? Do the issues make you kind of want to stay away? Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.